Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivadicharya Ashtatarshata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Abhay Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivadicharya Ashtatarshata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Samaveta Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Grantha Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 2, Remembrance of Lord Krishna. Text 3. Please repeat. Sakatam sevaya tasya. Sakatam sevaya tasya. Kalena jarasam gataha. Kalena jarasam gataha. Prishto vartam pratibhruyad. Prishto vartam pratibhruyad. Bhartu padavanusmaran. Bhartu padavanusmaran. Sakatam sevaya tasya. Kalena jarasam gataha. Prishto vartam pratibhruyad. Bhartu padavanusmaran. Sakatam sevaya tasya. Kalena jarasam gataha. Prishto vartam pratibhruyad. Bhartu padavanusmaran. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Uddhava thus served the Lord continually from childhood, and in his old age that attitude of service never slackened. As soon as he was asked about the message of the Lord, he at once remembered all about him. Purport. Transcendental service to the Lord is not mundane. The service attitude of the devotee gradually increases and never becomes slackened. Generally, in old age, a person is allowed retirement from mundane service, but in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no retirement at all. On the contrary, the service attitude increases more and more with the progress of age. In the transcendental service, there is no satiation, and therefore there is no retirement. Materially, when a man becomes tired by rendering service in his physical body, he is allowed retirement. But in the transcendental service, there is no feeling of fatigue because it is spiritual service and is not on the bodily plane. Service on the bodily plane dwindles as the body grows older, but the spirit soul is never old, and therefore on the spiritual plane the service is never tiresome. Uddhava undoubtedly became old, but that does not mean that his spirit became old. His service attitude matured on the transcendental plane, and therefore as soon as he was questioned by Vidura about Lord Krishna, he at once remembered his Lord by reference to the context and forgot himself on the physical plane. That is the sign of pure devotional service to the Lord, as will be explained later on. Lakshanam Bhakti Yogasya, etc. In Lord Kapila's instructions to his mother, Devahuti. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here we're seeing in this part of the Srimad Bhagavatam that Vidura, the brother of King Pandu, the brother of King Pandu and Dhritarashtra, has been disgusted with the situation in the house of the Kurus, as Nrsimha Prabhu was recounting yesterday. He left aside his bow on the door, I think, of the house, and he left. He stormed out. And he started to go on places of pilgrimage right throughout India, South India to Prabhasha Kshetra, and then he's going up a bit north as well. And then he comes in touch with Uddhava. Now, one may think that is Vidura running away from his duty? Because he comes from a Kshatriya family. Sure, his father is Vyasadeva and his mother is a Shudrani. But nevertheless, by his qualities and his activities and by his association, he's living in the house of Kshatriyas. So he can be considered to be a Kshatriya as well, coming from that family lineage. And also someone else who went on pilgrimage was, of course, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his form as Balaram as well. And Balaram himself is a Kshatriya as well. Balaram's father is who? Vasudeva. And Balaram's mother is Rohini. So both are Kshatriyas as well. Now, Bhagavad Gita explains that the qualities of a Kshatriya, one of the qualities is Yuddhe cha palayanam. Right? A Kshatriya is not supposed to run away from his duty. And that's the very reason why Krishna chastised Arjuna in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. Ashochanan vashochastam pragyavada shavashase gatasuna gatam susha nanu shochanti panata. Klebhyamasmagamata parta, klebhyamasmagama parta, naitattvaya papadite, kshudram hridaya dorbalyam, tyakto tishta parantapa. So Krishna was encouraging Arjuna to cast aside his material illusion and his attachment to his family members and actually fight the war. But here we see that Balaram, and again, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and someone like Vidura, when they had the opportunity to fight for Dharma, they went on pilgrimage. So how do we understand this? Krishna, being the supreme moral personality, and that's mentioned again in the last verse of the Bhagavad Gita. When Krishna is there, when Arjuna is there, complete morality is there as well. There's victory as well. So Krishna has two sides to him. Krishna has a side where he's completely independent to do whatever he likes, abhigya swarat, and at the same time, Krishna is dependent on his devotees as well. So Krishna is simultaneously independent and Krishna is simultaneously dependent as well. So through his feature as Balaram, Krishna is demonstrating that he may be coming as a Kshatriya, but he's completely independent. If he doesn't want to fight in the war, he doesn't have to fight in the war. And yet in his feature as Krishna, he has an obligation to his friend, Arjuna. He comes as Arjuna's chariot driver, and he places upon Arjuna's request the chariot in between the two armies. Shri Vishnu Shravane Parikshita Bhavat Vyasa Kirtane Prahlade Smarane Tadangri Bhajane Lakshmi Pritu Pujane Akrurastva Bhivandane Kapipatir Dasyeta Sakyarjuna Sarvasvatma Nivedane Balirabhut Krishnaptire Shampara. So this is a really nice verse by Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And it's explaining how each limb of devotional service, right? There's different types of devotional Shravanam, Kirtan, Vishnu. And just by performing one of them, just by becoming expert in one of them, what happens? What is the goal? Krishnaptir Eshampara. One reaches the abode of Krishna. And even if one doesn't physically reach the abode of Krishna, one reaches the pure devotional service at the lotus feet of Krishna, which is exactly the same thing. Because as Kapila Muni explains to his mother Devahuti, that Krishna's devotees are not after Salokya, Sarshri, Samipya, Ekatvam, Apyuta, all these things. Diyamanam na granate vinamat bhaktim jana. I don't even want to go to the abode of Lord Krishna if he doesn't want me there. And if I don't have pure devotional service to Krishna, then the whole of existence doesn't mean anything to me. So, it's Lord Shiva that says to his wife Parvati how it doesn't matter where devotees are in Naraka or if they're in Swarga, as long as they have the association of each other, as long as devotees are established in pure devotional service, it doesn't matter to them where they're actually situated. So in the form of Balaram, Krishna demonstrated his detachment and renunciation, and we see that in Krishna Leela as well, where what did Krishna do? Prabhupada explains one of the most beautiful females in the entire creation of God were there assembled, and Krishna was there as a young boy in the dead of night. Krishna told them to go back to their houses. And Krishna, he didn't act, he genuinely was completely renounced. He was not after enjoying like that. He was completely renounced because he's fully self-satisfied. Yet, before that, maybe a year or two before that, it's explained that when the cowherd boys and Krishna and Balaram were walking through the forest of Vrindavan, they came to Talavan, and there the ass demon, Dhenukasur, was there, along with his associates. And there, the cowherd boys told him, look, this is a really nice forest, the juiciest, most sweetest fruits are there. But this demon is there, and he's obstructing our path to go and enjoy these fruits. So there, Krishna was not renounced to the request of his devotees, to the cowherd boys. Instead, Krishna felt their desire, the cowherd boys' desire, and to fulfill their desires, Balaram and Krishna marched into the forest and did battle head-on with Dhenukasur. We know what they did. They grabbed the hind legs and they twirled them around and they threw them on top of the palm trees there. So on the one hand, Krishna is independent, and at the same time, Krishna is dependent on the desires of his devotees. But the devotees, on the other hand, are not thinking of their pleasure, they're thinking about Krishna's pleasure. Right? The classic example given is when they were walking, again, the cowherd boys were walking along with Krishna and Balaram through the forest, and they were thinking that Krishna must be hungry, so let us say that we are hungry instead. And then they went, and then Krishna told them, okay, you go and beg some food from the brahmanas, like that. So there's a really nice reciprocal relationship. So that's Balaram, right? That's Balaram. So we can justify Balaram in that sense, why he renounced the responsibility to fight. Of course, he was attached to Duryodhana, and he didn't want to see Duryodhana because Balaram, I guess, being Trikalagya, knew what was going to happen as a result. And we hear that in the Bhagavad Gita as well. Even before the Kurukshetra battle started, there were different types of signs which sort of foresaw the victory of the Pandavas. And the prominent one there was that it was being held at Kurukshetra, which is the Dharmakshetra, and the Pandavas were completely adharmic. In fact, the 6 qualities of an aggressor, can anyone recount what they are? The 6 things, the 6 traits of an aggressor, for which a person, if he breaks that, he's liable to be killed without punishment. Can anyone say? Kidnapping one's wife, plundering riches, setting fire to a house, okay, attacking with deadly weapons, and poisoning. Now, this is 5, right? There's not 6. Okay, that's 5. Now, if you look at the Pandavas, they practically did everything, every single one of these. Right? They burnt down the house of Lak, they administered poison to Bhima, they stole Draupadi, right? And I'm sure they did the others as well. Plundered their wealth. Yes, they plundered their wealth, they took away their kingdom. Did they do that? How? Okay. Yeah, so, and also you could say by their words as well, because the Pandavas came to them and simply begged for just 5 villages. And they said no, and then it came to the point where the war had to be fought. So they did attack with deadly weapons, because that's why the whole battle was there. That's why the whole armies were there, arranged and ready to attack each other with deadly weapons. Tatra pasya stitin bharata pitrina tapita mahan acharin matulan bratan pitran putran sakim sata shashuran sauradascheva senoyor ubayorapi. So there Arjuna saw on the battlefield all of his family members, different types of family members, brothers-in-law, uncles, sons, cousins, assembled ready to fight with him. So the Pandavas broke all of these. and therefore they were liable to be killed. Sorry, the Kauravas, and therefore they were liable to be killed. So anyway, that's Balaram. But then Vidura, what about Vidura? Krishna has a purpose to fulfill through each of his devotees. So if Arjuna didn't fight the Kurukshetra battle, and if he did run away, then the Bhagavad Gita would not be spoken. Right? If Vidura went to war, instead of going on pilgrimage, then what would have happened? Huh? This canto would not be there right now. This canto would not be there right now. So, Krishna inspired Vidura from within his heart to leave so that he would come in contact with Uddhava. He would come in contact with Maitreya Rishi. And both of these personalities, like the whole part of Devahuti and Kapiladev, that whole canto is Vidura and Maitreya Muni conversing, so we would not have that. You'll see later on in this chapter how Uddhava, he recounts pretty much all of Krishna Leela in just a couple of chapters actually to Vidura. And what better personality than Vidura to do that? Let's not forget, like here, Prabhupada is saying that Vidura is old. Not Vidura. Vidura is old as well, but Uddhava is also old as well. But many, many years back, Krishna had sent Uddhava to Vrindavan with a message about Krishna's well-being and how he's going in Hastinapur. Dwarka. And there Uddhava got to analyze the pure love and attachment that the residents of Vrindavan have for Krishna, especially in separation from him. So that was Uddhava's special qualification. What was Vidura's qualification? It's explained later on in the third canto that Vidura's special qualification was that he is adrita. Does anyone know what that means? Adrita? Adrita is a word which describes Vidura. Adrita means one who is extremely eager to hear. So Uddhava's qualification was his humility, and he's actually going to Vrindavan to actually learn what devotional service is. Because in Dwarka, the devotees there are also rendering devotional service. But when Krishna left Dwarka, the residents of Dwarka were not plunged into an ocean of separation from Krishna as much as the residents of Vrindavan were. So when Uddhava actually came to Vrindavan and saw the gopis and the residents of Vrindavan completely drowning in sorrow, he was very humbled by that. So here we have a conversation between these two really great personalities. Just how both Parikshit Maharaj is qualified and Shukadev Goswami is qualified, here Uddhava is supremely qualified because Krishna himself has instructed him before leaving for his own abode, and he's told Uddhava to go to Bhadrakashram and worship Narayana Rishi. And also Vidura is extremely qualified because he's very eager to hear. Because if you want to go to a place, like the pure devotees of the Lord are aiming to go back home, back to Godhead. Of course, it's up to Krishna. They leave it up to Krishna. But they're aiming to go there and serve Krishna there for Krishna's pleasure, not for their own pleasure. So it's not selfish. But to go to a place, you need a qualification. Just like for people to come to the temple, there's some qualification there. We say that anyone and anyone can come to the temple. That's true. But some qualification is still there. You need to, for example, take off your shoes at the front of the temple. You can't just walk into the temple with your shoes on. So that's a qualification. Right? You can't just walk into the temple just wearing anything and anything. You have to be dressed properly as well. Right? So that's the temple. In any material institution, universities or whatever, obviously there's qualification as well. To go and study there, you need a certain score in your marks, and then you can go there. You can't just go to the university and just not spend money on textbooks, right? And your courses. You have to spend money. You have to buy the textbooks. You have to have pens and papers and calculators, all these, otherwise you won't be able to function within that institution. So there are qualifications. We may say we're living in a really liberal society where everyone's treated equally, but if you don't have money to pay for the university, you're not going to go there. So qualification has to be there. So similarly, if you want to go to the kingdom of God, if you want to go to Krishna Loka, there's qualification there as well. You can't just believe, because just believing never got anyone anywhere. The point is that the Guru is giving instruction. So we have to try to emulate the Guru as far as possible. We have to try to follow in the footsteps of the Guru as possible. We have to work for the Guru's benefit. Simply believing in the Guru, knowing that the Guru exists and the teachings exist, never got anyone anywhere. Just like yesterday Nrsimha Prabhu was saying, that knowledge, unless it's applied, is useless knowledge. Jnana is useless. You have to have Vijnana. That Jnana has to lead to Vijnana. And that's demonstrated in the Krishna book as well. Where Krishna, baby Krishna, was in the womb of Devaki, in the present cell of Kamsa. So the example there, which is given, there's two examples given. The first example is that of a light or some small candle which is covered up by, I don't know, like another bowl or something like that. So the effulgence of the light, it can't transmit everywhere. So the light is useless. And the second example given in the Bhagavatam is that of misused education. Education, people are educated, they may be maya ya aprita jnanas, and they may mislead people, or someone has the knowledge, and instead of misleading people, they don't apply it at all. So we don't want either of these cases. So we want to apply the knowledge and reap the benefits of that knowledge. So one has to have qualification. Bhagavad Gita is not a book of belief, it's a book of action, it's a book of application. Arjuna was told theoretical knowledge by Krishna on the battlefield. And Krishna himself gave a practical demonstration as well in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. But then, even after asking Arjuna, have you understood everything? Have you learnt everything? Now do you want to apply this knowledge? Then Arjuna said, Karishe vachanam tava. And then Arjuna's fighting in the Kurukshetra war was the application of Bhagavad Gita. His act of fighting in the war was the application of Bhagavad Gita. Because what is the focal point of the Bhagavad Gita? To act for the pleasure of Rishikesh. Right? So Arjuna was fighting, and Krishna wanted the war to be fought. Tasmatvam uttishta yasho labasva jitva shatrun raja bhunksha samridin maye vete nihata purvameva nimitta matram bhavasa vyasachin. Krishna is explaining to Arjuna in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Tasmatum uttishta yasho labasva. Therefore get up, Arjuna. Even in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he's still telling Arjuna, get up, fight.